The refugee crisis is a complex and ongoing issue that has been evolving over several decades. While there isn't a clear moment we can pinpoint, as the start of the crisis, the UNHCR, United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, began keeping records on refugee populations in 1951, which means we have a limited range of data. Refugee populations started to grow in the 1960s and 1970s primarily due to major conflicts in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Vietnam, as well as smaller localized conflicts. The numbers increased further in the 1980s and 1990s with large displacements from Iraq, Rwanda, and Yugoslavia. Since 1982, the UNHCR has almost always had at least 10 million refugees under its protection. However, the crisis intensified between 2008 and 2012, when the global refugee population reached around 5 million people. In 2013, that number rose to nearly 7 million, and in 2014 it grew even more to 3 million. One key tipping point was the crisis in Syria. In 2012 alone, there were 729 Syrian refugees registered with the UNHCR. The main driver of displacement, and the key reason many people become refugees, is conflict. In fact, 73% of all refugees under UNHCR protection originate from just 5 countries: Afghanistan, Syria, Venezuela, Ukraine, and South Sudan. All of these countries have elements of violence and conflict driving the displacement of their people. Another contributing factor to the refugee crisis is hunger and famine. Conflict and climate change are major contributors to mass migration, and famine-like conditions often push people to leave their homes in search of safety and basic necessities. Hunger and migration go hand in hand, as hunger not only threatens the lives of those forced to flee, but also influences their decisions about when and where to move. It's essential to understand that the refugee crisis is not a problem caused by refugees themselves. Contrary to popular belief, most refugees are unable to legally work in the countries where they are temporarily living, and formal housing is often out of reach for them as well. The notion of refugees coming to steal jobs and affect the housing market is simply a myth. In reality, refugees face numerous threats, particularly women and children, who become targets for gender-based violence, exploitation, and assault. Accessing even the most basic essentials like food and shelter can be extremely challenging for them, leaving them vulnerable and in need of support. So how do we address the refugee crisis? There are 3 main solutions. Firstly, returning home becomes possible when circumstances enable refugees to safely and voluntarily go back to their homes. Secondly, local integration can occur when refugees are invited to remain permanently in the places they initially settled after fleeing their homes. Lastly, resettlement or relocation is a process that allows refugees to voluntarily settle in a new third country. By implementing these solutions and working together as a global community, we can make significant strides in tackling the refugee crisis, supporting those affected, and providing them with the safety, stability, and opportunities they deserve.